Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Javon Angela and I'm a traditional artist and a creator, and today I wanted to help you guys through the world of mixing colors. If another artist told me these three things earlier, it would have made my life a lot easier, especially navigating portraits. So in traditional color theory, the primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. For this video, I'm going to be using crimson red, medium blue, and medium yellow. So with these range of colors, you can mix a lot of other colors. You use blue and red to get purple, then you can use red and yellow to get orange, and then you can use blue and yellow to get green. So right now you're mixing the primary colors together to get the secondary colors. A color wheel is really essential to the art process, but I didn't know how essential it was until today when I started to actually study color. The primary colors and the secondary colors and everything in between forms the color wheel, and there's multiple kinds of color wheels out there for different things like photography or filming, but in this case we're going to use a traditional color wheel. The term value represents the lightness or the darkness of a certain hue. So whenever you want to make something lighter, you would tint it with white. You would add a bit of white into the color. If you wanted to make something darker or you wanted to shade it, you would add a bit of black paint to it. The third thing is chroma, and chroma is also known as the saturation or the intensity of a color. As you saw in the last chart with the values, I put white at the top and black at the bottom. We're going to do the same thing, but with this, we're going to put the most pure and intense color at the top, and we're going to put a gray tone at the bottom. The goal is to get from that gray tone all the way to the most intense form of the color. And as you go up, you're going to saturate the color. As you go down, you're desaturating. When it comes to making skin tones, your goals are raw sienna, burnt sienna, and burnt umber. I'm going to show you guys how to achieve these colors with the basic primary colors, and then I will show you how to apply that to an actual portrait. So right now, starting with burnt umber, you're going to take all your colors, the blue, the red, and the yellow, and you're going to mix them evenly on a separate palette until you get this burnt dark brown color. For burnt sienna, you're going to take a portion of that burnt umber and you're going to add red and yellow to it in even proportions. For the raw sienna, you're going to take the burnt sienna and you're going to lighten it up by adding yellow to it. You can always cut corners and buy these colors inside the store, but I think it's important to know how to mix these colors on your own. When you use the primary colors, you can make a wide variety of skin tones. The more red you add, the more of a red undertone your skin pigments are going to have. And the more yellow you add, the more of a yellow undertone your pigments are going to have. Blue kind of helps control the colors in a way and make sure it still looks like a skin tone. But there's just so much you can do with the basic yellow, blue, and red. After a certain point, you can see that I no longer add red and blue into the mixture, and I just use yellow and white, and that's to make it brighter. As soon as you get into the highlights and the lighter tones, you're going to be adding yellow and white. This is why it's very important to know about your values and your hues and your chromas, because I'm using the hues to change the actual skin tones, but I'm also using the values to figure out what kind of skin tones I want to use. When you're painting someone, you don't stick to one skin tone. You use shading and you use tints, and that's going up and down in the value scale. I would be extremely careful when adding white though, because sometimes it can kind of mute and drain out your colors. It won't be as pigmented, so sometimes I add yellow and white together to make it more pigmented and get more of a yellow undertone. And this effect can apply to all the different colors there are on the color wheel. You can use greens and blues and purples to add shading, and you can use yellow and red and white to make something more pigmented. Now we're going to apply color to an actual solid shape or form. So when you're painting a portrait, you should think of it as an actual form, something that can reflect light. We can take the head, for example, as this sphere. Whenever I paint a portrait, I start with the dark values first, the shadows and all the darker tones. This just makes it easier for me to read the portrait and it doesn't confuse me. I still know what I'm painting. Then we're gonna add the midtones. The midtones are the browns and all those colors that give you a sense of what the color is of that shape. When you're adding your midtones, you're gonna gradually get lighter and lighter without taking away the color with white. So in this process, you do not want to start adding white right away. You want to use yellow as much as possible until it starts to actually affect the way your circle's coming out. Then you want to switch to white. Now this line represents where the light is actually hitting, and that is going to be the brightest point of our shape. If you remember the value scale, we started off with dark black and we worked our way all the way up to white, and we're going to do the same thing when painting a person. So you're going to keep on working with the yellow and the whites until you reach the white or the lightest point on your shape or with your reference. So now we're going to apply everything that I just studied and talked about to a portrait painting. When I'm painting a portrait, I'm thinking about how the light is hitting the object and also how the color is wrapping around the object. So right now I'm starting with the darkest shades and the colors, and I'm using burnt umber and burnt sienna, mixing those together to lay out the shades. I'm gradually building it up and I'm getting lighter as we go, but I'm not just getting into white and yellow right away. You can see that I'm adding red and I'm adding yellow tones into the skin tone to make it look more natural. This is just the base layer and it's my first layer. I'm going to add on top of this with lighter colors as we progress through the portrait. I get into more of a yellow tone right away, and it's because I want to keep this portrait model true to herself. I'm not going to make her too red and I'm not going to make her too blue. I'm going to make her as yellow as she's supposed to be and as yellow as her undertone presents itself. I would consider this yellow red tone, my mid-tone. And then working with my mid-tone, you can see me making it lighter gradually. Never inside this process so far have I added any white. Right now I'm just working with red, yellow, and blue to give me the kind of realism that I need. After a certain point, I stop adding all over the skin tone and I start focusing on the highlighted areas. The highlighted areas are usually under the eyebrow bone, the cheekbone, a little bit below the cheekbone, but right above the jawline, around the ear, the tip of the nose, the bridge of the nose, the corner of the eyes, the neck bones, and a little bit on the shoulder. Just like the sphere, we're going to gradually get lighter. So before I went in with white in general, I was going in with yellow and white. And right now it's just like beating a dead horse. You're just going to keep on repeating the same process of going over the highlighted areas until you reach white or the nirvana white. I like to think of all my portraits as objects. And right now you can see that the light is hitting the same exact area as on the sphere that I demonstrated earlier. But depending on your subjects, this can change. So you really want to pay attention to the highlighted areas and the shaded areas. Those are going to be your main values that you need to navigate. And when you're adding shading, do not just pay attention to adding black. You need to see how your chroma affects your shading too. I started off with adding black roots and then gray braids. And the reason why I'm adding gray braids is because there's a certain shimmer underneath the braids' black tone. I'm going back in with deep black to make more of a pattern for braids, and then I'm gonna add the highest value white for the shiny and the shimmer of the braids. Lastly, I'm just going in with final details to finish it off, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and you learned something today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe and I'll see you in my next one.